All right, let's dive right in. Today we're going to unpack a really powerful idea from our source text, one that might just change the way you see your entire spiritual life. It's about a profound reality that you're already a part of, so let's get to it. So to start, let's talk about a feeling I think a lot of people can relate to. The sense that on our spiritual journey, there's always something more to get. A feeling like we're on the sidelines waiting for the really big stuff to happen.
So let me just ask you straight up, does this resonate with you? This idea of waiting for some fresh outpouring, a new level, or a higher dimension of spiritual power. It's a really common desire, for sure. But what if I told you our source material suggests we might be asking the wrong question altogether?
And that leads us to what the source calls a massive, widespread misconception. It's this whole idea that our spiritual life comes in little pieces or portions, something the text calls the myth of measure.
It's such an easy trap to fall into, isn't it? The thinking kind of goes like, okay, I've got a little bit of the Spirit, but I really need more. Or maybe if I do this or that, I'll get a bigger piece of the pie. But according to our source, that whole way of thinking is completely off base.
And wow, this chart just lays it all out. On one side, you have the myth, a spirit measured out, where we only get a portion, where he's seen as just a feeling or a force, and where we're always waiting for something in the future. But the reality the text presents, it's a total game changer. It's about fullness, receiving all of him, knowing him as a person and living in that reality right now. So what's backing this up?
So where does this radical idea come from? Well, the source actually grounds this whole concept in a very specific scriptural truth that just blows the idea of limitation right out of the water.
And here it is. This verse is the key. God giveth not the Spirit by measure. The source basically argues that when it comes to the Spirit, God doesn't use a measuring cup. You don't get a percentage, you get the person. End of story. And to build on that, the text is super clear about who the Holy Spirit is. We're not talking about some impersonal force, like the wind or a fleeting emotion. The source points right to Jesus' own words, defining the Spirit as the indwelling Father himself, the one who actually does the works. Now that changes everything.
Just pause and think about the scale of that for a second. The source is emphasizing that the exact same Spirit, the one with enough power to raise Jesus Christ from the dead, the one that fueled all those miracles, that's the one living inside the believer. Not a watered-down version, not a small sample, but the real deal.
Okay, so if that's the reality, what does that actually mean for us? What are the implications? Let's dig into what the source says about the incredible power that this fullness unlocks in your life. And this verse just builds right on that foundation. If you have the fullness of the Spirit, it means the greater one lives in you. This isn't just some nice poetic phrase. The text presents it as a hard fact that completely redefines your position no matter what you're facing.
And because of that, your whole identity shifts. Because the greater one is in you, the source says you are more than a conqueror. You can do all things. You've already overcome. You are his living temple, the actual ark of his presence, carrying his glory with you wherever you go. This isn't something you're trying to become, it's who you already are. The source makes this super practical. This isn't just a state of being, it's meant to be expressed. When you speak with this consciousness, it's not just you talking anymore. When you act, maybe by laying hands on the sick, as the text mentions, it's the Spirit ministering through you. You literally become the hands and feet for his work. So we've laid it all out. The reality is fullness, and the result is power. The final, and maybe the most important piece of the puzzle, is how do you actually live this out? Well, it all comes down to a shift in your thinking. And here's the big takeaway. The goal isn't to try and get more of the Spirit. The real key is becoming more conscious, more aware of the Spirit you already have in his entirety. According to the source, manifestation flows from consciousness. The more you're aware of him living in you, the more he shows up through you. And it really breaks down into a simple 3-step process. First, you have to actively refuse any thought that tells you you're limited or at a disadvantage. Second, you have to acknowledge the truth that you are full of divine energy and wisdom. And third, based on that truth, you just begin to boldly express his person and his presence. If you only take one thing away from all of this, let it be this right here. You are not partially filled. You are not waiting on some spiritual payment plan. According to this text, you have received the fullness of the Spirit. All of him is living in you right here, right now.
And that just leaves us with one final powerful question. Because this isn't just information, right? It's an invitation to a whole new way of living. So, knowing that you possess this limitless fullness,
How are you going to consciously express it in your thoughts, your words, and your actions, starting today?